Okay, we're here at Mickey Crowley's home at Calabash, North Carolina. Mickey, welcome to our show.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I really appreciate you asking me, Jim.
Thank you. Our viewers don't know, but I'll tell them at the outset that you're one of the more famous and recognized college referees in the last 20 or 30 years. Am I right?
Is that famous or infamous?
I'm going to say famous.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that.
We've had a good time talking about your career already, but I want our viewers to know all about you. Tell us how you got into refereeing.
Okay, I was a baseball player, and I liked baseball, right?
Right.
And I wound up refereeing a college baseball game, okay, between Fordham and Fairleigh Dickinson. And I was working behind home plate, and the game lasted 4.5 hours. And I said, this is crazy. I got to get out of here and go to a game that has a time limit. So that's when I went to basketball. But the original one was I went to LaSalle Academy in New York City. And the coach of LaSalle was Danny Buckley. And I was, most of the time, always in trouble in school. And I wound up staying after school, right?
Right.
So I'm sitting in the gym, and Danny keeps seeing me there. And he says, you're here every day. He says, come on down. I said, what do you want me to do, sweep the floor during practice? He says, no. He throws me a whistle and says, referee.
That's where it began.
That's one of the ones how I get started. And the ironical part about it, Jim, is that Danny Buckley then left LaSalle and went to the Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, where he coached my son. So it's it's funny how things turn around.
Mickey, I want to tell your story from beginning to end, because you've gone from those humble beginnings to serving as Final Four referee on several occasions, and a great career in between. Right?
Yeah, I was lucky, Jim. I did the '89 final, which was Seton Hall, Michigan, and we had a call in the overtime that referee John Cloggety made, and it was the right call. And to show you the classy person that P.J. Carlissimo is, when it was all over, and he loses by 1 point because the foul was called, and the Michigan guy made both foul shots, and Michigan wins. But at the end of the game, the reporters are standing there, and of course they keep asking P.J., what do you think of the call? What do you think of the call? And I don't forget P.J. saying, if John Cloggety thought it was a foul, it was a foul.
Right.
Now, how many coaches in that situation are going to say that, right? But the reason I'm bringing up John Cloggety is if you watch the NCAA playoffs, his son, Timmy, is refereeing some of the games.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
isn't something? And then the '91 final, which was
Duke
Kansas.
and Kansas.
Right, and you know who the coach of Kansas was?
No.
All right, he's now the coach of North Carolina.
Roy Williams.
Right.
How about that?
Right,
Yeah.
and you talk about an easy game to referee. There's two of the classiest guys
Right.
in the coaching fraternity, and they just let you referee.
What's it take to make a top flight referee?
Oh, well, I think for number one is you got to be in half decent shape.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is you got to know the rules. Number three, and the most important thing, and it's the most important thing in not only refereeing, it's the most important thing in what he does, it's the most important thing in what you do.
Communication.
How you handle people.
Mm.
If you can handle people, you can do anything. So that's, I think, the most important thing is how you handle people.
Well, let's start with the title of your book.
Okay.
It says, Throw the Ball High. And I know what it means, but our viewers may not, so tell us what it means.
Okay, it's when you're teaching, I ran a camp for officials. And the worst thing in the world you can do is when you start a game, is if you don't throw the ball high enough and somebody steals the tap, now you're 2 seconds into the game and you're blowing a whistle already. All right?
Right.
So we always said, make sure when you start the game to throw the ball high. Now, there was a couple of other titles we had that we were thinking about, but we really couldn't use them. So we decided on that. But that's part of the game. You've got to start the game off right. In fact, a cute story about that is we got Yugoslavia, it was China, playing Rutgers in Madison Square Garden. 19,000 people in the place. And I bring both captains out, and I say to the captain from China, do you understand English? No, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
I say to the captain from Rutgers, do you understand Chinese? And he says, no, 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 no. I say, okay, good. I'm going to give the pregame in Yugoslavian. And I pretend to go, but that game ends in a tie. Okay, 19,000 people in a place. I go over to Tom Young, and Tom Young says, I know, we've got to play 5-minute overtime. Great. I go to the coach of China. I said, sir, you're packing up your bags and you're packing up your uniforms. Why are you doing that? He says, we come here to learn. We learn. We go home. I said, sir, the game is tied. We got to play in overtime.
One of the few games that ended in a tie, right?
He said, no, 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 thank you very much. We come here to learn. We learn. We go home. And he leaves. And I think it was the only game that wound up in a tie.
How about that?
Yeah, I think it was the only game that wound up in a tie. But,
one of the things that you said in your book was don't screw it up.
right.
And you said that either to yourself or your fellow referee before every game.
Right. And it's a saying that first off, you don't want to be involved in a crazy situation, right? If you're not sure it's a foul, then it's not a foul. If you're not sure it's a walk, then it's not a walk. And if you're going to make a call in the last 5 seconds of the game, if there's 19,000 people in the place, 19,000 people better see that, okay? So that's what I meant is, don't screw it up.
Yeah.
I mean, just get out there. The game is not for the coaches, although now it's getting to be a little bit that way. The game is not for the referees, although now it's getting to be a little bit that way too.
But one of the things you say in your book is to let them play.
That's right. The game is for the players. Let them play. All right. Yeah. I had a situation where a player was driving on a baseline, and he got bumped. Just a little bit, Jim. And I didn't think it was enough to call a foul because he beat the defensive player, was going in for a layup. Now his next step is he steps out of bounds. Now, if I didn't call a foul, how am I going to call you out of bounds? I can't call a foul now because it'd be too late. So I let them both go.
Yeah.
And to me, I thought that was a fair decision.
That's called letting them play.
Yeah, that's one of Crowley's rules.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the rule book, I think when I first started to referee, and I threw the rule book away. My techniques, the signals,
right,
were the absolute worst. Absolutely. I've had people say to me, what was that? What signal is that? I'd like, out of bounds, I would do this. But everybody knew you sitting up in the third deck of Madison Square Garden, who paid you $3 to see the game, looked down at the floor, and you knew the call that I had. My techniques were not the best. It's like the saying that I have. Coach gets up and hollers at you because of a call you just made.
Mm-hmm.
Can you turn around and say to that coach, I know, coach, but weren't my signals great? I mean, he don't care about your signals. Get the darn call right.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
One of the things that I've noticed since I read your book in the last week or two is that I now I've begun to watch the referees instead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, I've watched basketball all of my life, or either on television or in person, and I never saw the referees.
That's good.
Right, that's the idea.
Good. That's absolutely
Talk
good.
about that for a second.
Well, the thing is that if when you finish the game, if nobody knows who the referees were,
mm-hmm.
you guys did a hell of a job.
Mm-hmm.
Because you weren't involved in any controversy. You may not have gotten every call right, all right? But the main thing is nobody knows you were there. You did a fine job.
But you and your fellow refs get together before the game,
Yes.
after the game. You talk about what's going well, what's unusual. Tell us about that.
Okay.
Tell us about what happens
all right,
then.
before the game, you have to be there an hour and a half before. I think it's the same now. You had to be there an hour and a half before game time. That's when you would sit down and you're assigned referee, umpire 1, umpire 2. The referee is the guy that's in charge.
Now, there were 2 back in those days, am I right?
Yeah.
But there are 3 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be referee and then umpire.
Right.
So the referee would sit down and say, all right, guys, this team has a tendency to grab a lot as they're going up the floor. If we're going to get it, let's get it early.
Okay.
and stop it.
Makes sense.
Right. If we stop it in the first 2 minutes, you're not going to have it happen in the last 2 minutes. So let's get it done and get it done early. And these are the things. And then we would say, the one coach has a tendency to jump a little bit. All right. Let's see if we can calm him down a little bit. Like the line that I used to use for Louis Condeseca. Because Louis, this was before the coach's box. When Louis would drift, he'd be drifting. One time I turned around and he fully out of the coach's box. He's standing right in front of the scorer's table. I turned around and hollered to him, Louis! He said, what? I said, if you're coming in the game, make sure you report. And he looks at me and he goes like this and turns around and goes back and sits down.
Yeah, point made.
So you know, you gotta realize that you are not the king. Here I am, look at me. Nobody paid to see me. Right? They paid to see the kids play. So going back to your question, then at halftime when you go in, okay guys, what do we do good in the first half that we can better ourselves in the second half? I think we let a little bit too much grabbing going on underneath the basket. Let's see if we can open it up early.
Right.
So get a call early and see if we can open it up. Coach of Team A is, you know, jumping around a little bit. When we go out, let's calmly walk past him and say, Coach, do me a favor. Please stay on the bench a little bit more. Please, all right? Very nicely, all right? Then when the game is over, you go inside, you take a shower, and you get the heck out of there. Because there ain't a darn thing you can do now. It's over.
But the players talk also.
Oh, yeah. Well, the players, a lot of time, if you talk, if you don't, a lot of officials, I shouldn't say a lot of officials, there are some officials that talk down to the players. I would rather have you talk up to the players.
Right.
And say, and most of the players you had to talk up to anyway.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, say to them and get to know their name. Right? Jim, do me a favor, will you? I know Joe was pushing you around a little bit. Please let us handle it. Okay, Mr. Crowley, you got it. You got it. You got it. You
All
know,
of which makes for a better game.
yeah, but you know what I would say to him?
Please.
Not Mr. Crowley. Mickey. All right. Now he looks at me and says, "Hey, that's pretty good." But now for the whole game, I'm hearing, "Hey, Mickey!
Yeah,
Hey,
right.
Mickey! Hey, Mickey!" So, and then when the game is over, it's on to the next town.
And I'm going to guess, in some small way, every game's a little different.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. You cannot go in with a predetermined thing on the game. Because if you do, you're going to mess it all up. All right? I mean, there are games, St. John's, Villanova, like I told you before, Villanova playing Georgetown is a hell of a lot easier. All right? Because you know they're going to be beating up on each other. And you can literally call whatever you want to call, than a Princeton-Harvard game. Because every little touch in that game means something.
Yeah.
Means something, right?
Yeah.
In the St. John's Georgetown game, hey, they beat up on each other. You let it go, you don't let it go, what have you.
I want our viewers to know that not only did you have a great career in refereeing, but you also were a supervisor of referees in one or several of the leagues in the Northeast.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay, 1991 in the Duke, Kansas final. When the game was over and I got home, okay, I got a phone call from a fellow named Ron Berdovich, who was the commissioner of the Atlantic 10. And he said to me, is that we just lost our commissioner. We would like to have you be our next commissioner. Now, to show you how lucky you can get, okay, I thought he meant for men and women.
Right.
Because I was already the women's supervisor for the Big East. So I said, well, are you offering me the job? And he was cute. He said, if I offer you the job, are you going to accept it? I said, well, you offering me the job? He said, yeah, I'm offering you the job, but you got to meet the ADs. I said, okay. Now, again, I thought it was both men and women.
Right.
And at that time, he asked me, well, how much do you want? So I gave him a figure, which I thought was double because of men and women.
Sure.
I went into the meeting with the ADs, and some ADs had some things to say, and finally Charlie Theokas, excuse me, who was the athletic director of Temple, says, hey, look, give him what we want. We went after him. He didn't come after us. Give him what he wants. So I wound up getting the pay scale for both men and women, and I found out later it was only men.
Yeah, right.
So I immediately said to Ronnie, I said, Ron, I thought it was for both. He said, don't worry about it, you're worth it. So then I was there, for about 12 years, and after 12 years, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make a change.
It's a great career.
Right. But I left there, and I was no sooner out the door than I got a call from the commissioner of the Patriot League. All right? And her and the commissioner of the Ivy League asked me to meet them in Newark. So I went into Newark, and they offered me the job for both leagues. So I said, sure, why not? So I stayed there for about 7 years. And then I finally said, hey, I'm 66 years old. No, more than that. I was over 70. Time to get out, go play golf, have some fun. So I left there, and I became a ranger at the golf course.
And was that here in Brunswick County?
On Long Island.
Oh, okay. All right.
On Long Island. And I loved that.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with that.
I want to go back to the refs for a second. Referees then, and protect, especially now, get graded for their conduct or their
Absolutely.
handling of a game.
Yes, we had, let's take the Atlantic 10, all right? Obviously 10 schools. So I was the commissioner, I was not the commissioner, I was the supervisor of officials. I hired 10 observers, one for each school, usually somebody that lived fairly close to that school. They would go to every home game, sit at the scorer's table, evaluate the officials, and mail me, that was before text messages, mail me their evaluations.
Yeah.
Now, I also would go around the league and go to all different schools. I would, going back, the observers were not allowed to go into the dressing room to talk to the officials because I didn't want 95 different things. But if I was at the game, at the end of the game, I would go into the dressing room and talk to the officials and say, hey guys, I think we could have done this better. I think we could have done that better. And if there was a controversy, all right guys, tell me what happened, because you know the minute I walk out this door, I'm going to get hit with the coaches and with the newspaper people, and that's the way you did it. And also, if I may, Jim, if you watch the NCAA playoffs, there is an observer at every game.
Interesting.
Sitting in the stands, evaluating the officials that are working to see who moves on to the next round.
Mickey, we're going to take a brief break. I have so much more for you.
Great.
We'll be back with Mickey Crowley.
I had noticed Lincoln Elementary School had a whole bunch of garden beds that were elevated, or not elevated, they were raised garden beds off the ground. One of their teachers had done a lot of work, and a lot of students, a lot of regular education students were out there working in these gardens during the morning, during the afternoon, and I just had the idea that none of our children in our special education department had access to that because they're so low to the ground. Some of our children with motor impairments that need wheelchairs couldn't access them either, reach them. So I started researching elevated beds for them to be able to do the same thing that their typically developing peers were doing. Right now there's 9 schools. One school got 2 beds, and then the other 8 schools got each 1 bed. Hopefully in a couple years, every school's gonna have a bed and multiple beds. First of all, they're learning a ton of things. In the beginning, it was just following directions, building these beds. In the accessible agricultural program, they're gonna be learning basic parts. In middle school, it's different with Common Core standards. They're gonna be learning basic parts of a plant, photosynthesis. And in high school, of course, it would be a little bit more advanced than that, but it's all about agriculture. So everything from following directions, planting, digging, using their hands, motor activities, what a plant needs to survive. It's so heartwarming. I want to cry every time I think about it. I do. I'm sorry. It just, how generous AT&C has been. I've gotten grants from them in the past, a grant, but nothing like this. And just their support has, we wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Okay, we're back with Mickey Crowley. Mickey, in the limited time that we have, I want to hit you with the names of some coaches and just give me a one or two word or a sentence or two on each one of them. Let's start with Rick Pitino.
Rick Pitino, good guy. I just hope that whatever they're saying in the papers is not true. He was always very fair to me and was a fun guy.
Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight, a sweetheart.
No kidding.
Most people think he's crazy. He is. But I'll tell you one thing, he was the easiest guy in the world to deal with because he was up front.
Jim Valvano. I'm sorry. Jim Valvano.
Jimmy Valvano was a good guy. He had a quick tongue, and, he would make you laugh, and you would make him laugh.
Yeah. Coach K.
Coach K, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Quick story, Coach K. His wife's name is Mickey. And every time I would referee a game, as I come out, I would say to him, Coach, which Mickey do you love? He says, for the next 2 hours, it's you. After that, get out of here.
That's great. I want our viewers to know that you were the 1990 Naismith Official of the Year.
If that's what it was, 1990.
It was
right.
1990. And that you're in more Hall of Fames than I can, than time permits right now.
Well, I think that what happens is that they ran out of time, ran out of people to give the awards to.
I don't think so, Mickey.
But I was extremely lucky. It was, like I said to you, God gave me, I think, the talent to be able to communicate with people, and I've been able to, if not, I think I'd still be driving a truck someplace.
You've had this wonderful career. A quick question. Let's look into your crystal ball. What's basketball going to be like in 30 years?
Well, number one, I don't think I'm going to be around, so I don't think I have to worry about it. But I don't know if it's going to change that much. I think it'll be more of a being like robots.
More specialized players
Yeah,
and positions?
Yeah, and then referees. I think they're going to do away with the referees and just use the cameras all over the place,
You think so?
Yeah, well, no, I'm kidding when I say
thought
that.
so, yeah.
But let's go back to letting the kids play the game. Let the referees do their job. Let the coaches do their job, all right?
And throughout your book, you said half a dozen times, let the guys play.
Absolutely, absolutely let them play.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
The game is not for the coaches. The game is not for the referees. The game of basketball, college basketball, is for the kids.
Right.
And the kids should be the ones that get all the credit for everything.
Mickey Crowley, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed being with you today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
You're terrific.
My pleasure, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
Your championship game officials, Mickey Crowley from Holbrook, New York.
It is an altogether fitting and proper place to find Mickey Crowley, in the very center of the glare of college basketball's brightest spotlight. The 1991 NCAA title game marked the second time in his career that Crowley reached the highest summit. Mickey Crowley, it seems, was born with that ever-present whistle in his mouth. It became as much a part of the man as the welcoming smile, the firm handshake. Rarely is a man who wears the stripes so universally hailed as being at the top of his craft. Yet the road to the pinnacle, in retrospect, has been a straight line. For almost 2 full generations, it has been Mickey Crowley who set the standard, established the protocol by which this profession can be judged. Crowley helped create and define this vocation. He's worked tirelessly to improve the game, keep the playing court level, make sense of the overwhelmingly complex elements that go into the execution of a top-flight basketball contest. But it is more than that, much more. At the very base of all that he has done has been an undying respect for the efforts of the players and the coaches, a deep and abiding sense that their work deserves the very best the men with the whistle can offer, and that there is no higher compliment than for a referee to go totally unnoticed. Crowley has made lifelong relationships with the very best and brightest that this sport can present, yet it is in the literally thousands and thousands of daily interactions, both on and off the court, that Mickey has made his strongest mark. He is, in many ways, the definition of a legend, a near mythic character, a part of the very fabric of the most American of sports. The accomplishments are nearly impossible to list, to place in a context that can fully carry the weight of a lifetime of achievement. But make no mistake, the words and the deeds of Mickey Crowley will always stand in bold relief, and from all those whose lives have been touched, will never be forgotten.
The administrators and the teachers, everybody, all the stakeholders were a lot more interested in doing more STEM. And so it seemed like a good time to apply for an ATMC grant and get more iPads in the classroom, here for the art classroom and the music classroom. And it's been a big hit since we've got them.
Well, these projects in music, what we did was use the program GarageBand in order for students to create their own original music that paired along with the project they did in art class. Their goal was to create music that represented the same core value they created visually in Minecraft.
Minecraft is where you could place blocks wherever you would like, and you could just let your imagination flow through, and you could almost create anything you would like. My teammate was Lydia, and we worked together, and we came up with the idea of a bouquet.
In art class, we created an American flag and a duck to represent the value of honesty. In music, we use GarageBand to create music to show that same value.
You know, with this new creativity, they're able to create their own ideas and work in new ways, which are going to solve the problems that we're having today in the 21st century. One
of the great things about Brunswick County is we have a lot of STEM industries here in our community. We have the power plant, we have Corning over in Wilmington, and ATMC is a big employer here in the county, and they're part of our community. So it's really great that they're able to facilitate our schools having more technology by doing grant funding.
It's so impressive and it's so amazing that they're willing to invest their money into the lives of these students that we have here at Bolivia. Because a lot of these students may not have the ability to do this stuff on their own, and because of ATMC, these kids are getting opportunities to learn in new ways in the evolving world with the new technology that's coming out.
Thank you for watching this month's show. If you have any suggestions for future topics, email us at atmctv@atmc.com. Join us next time on Our Hometown.
At ATMC, we know that fast, reliable internet is essential to connecting our local community to a better future. That's why we're investing millions to bring faster internet to members living in Brunswick County's most rural areas. We call this Project 2019 because in the next 24 months, over 4,000 of our members will have access to internet speeds up to 50 times faster than today. Because when it comes to doing right by our members, it's all about you.